Hallelujah. Well, today is Tuesday. I love Tuesdays because on Tuesdays, we talk relationship, we talk love, we talk marriage. And so here we are, and we're going to be talking again on relationship. We are talking this evening on your relationship versus other relationships. That is your intimate relationship, the relationship you have with your partner versus all other relationships. My objective actually this evening is to help us know how to go about our personal relationship, that is our intimate relationships, or relationship partner, our friend, our husbands, our fiancés, our lovers, with all other relationships. And I want you to know that by the grace of God, at the end of this meeting, you will know how to protect your relationship, how to set a good balance, so that your relationship, intimate relationship, will not suffer at the compared to your other relationships, and the other relationships will also not suffer when compared to your personal relationship. Whether we like it or not, see, relationship is beautiful. Relationships are what beautiful. It's a beautiful experience. Having a good relationship is good for life. Having a good relationship it's beautiful. It's God's platform for improvement. I keep saying that a good relationship improves you. It gives you a leverage to become a better you. And as much as relationships are beautiful, they are also very necessary. That is to say, nobody can think of staying isolated. Don't allow yourself ever get to the point where you'll be isolated from others, because relationships are necessary. They are compulsory. Why? Because we are created by God to be relational beings. So anytime any human being is isolated, that's why when you want to break a person, they take the person and take the person into prison or isolate the person from other people. So relationship for us as human beings is necessary and compulsory, but it's also very delicate, and it could also be complicated when not well managed. And one thing that actually complicates our intimate relationships with our spouses or our parents is our other relationships. That is the relationships we have with parents. That is, you are looking at your relationship between your parents and your partner, the relationship between you, your partner, your partner, your partner and your friends, your partner and your siblings. Whether we like it or not, every relationship has attachments. You can't be into a relationship without having what? Attachment. There's this passage in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 10. It says, "Thy own friend and thy father's friend forsake not." So you have a father, your father has a friend, and you have a friend. You have to know how to connect all of the relationships, your personal relationship with your relationship with your father, and also have to respect your father's friend. That means every relationship has what? Attachments. Like it or not, when we get into relationship, we often carry our other relationships into our intimate relationship and put it this other way. We also inherit other relationships. Anybody we are falling in love with, anybody we are getting intimate with, has other relationships he or she will be bringing into our intimate relationship. So it's impossible to have a relationship, a love relationship, in isolation of all other relationships. I like to think of relationships as a living thing. And one of the characteristics of every living thing is that it reproduces, right? So also relationship does what? Reproduces. You get into one relationship, it reproduces all other relationships for you. So get ready. Once you think relationship, to think of how to protect your intimate relationship, or how to balance your intimate relationship with all your other relationships. Now, what do you do to protect or balance between your intimate relationship, that's your relationship between you and your partner, and your other relationships? What do you do? In a statement, create boundaries. Create what? Boundaries. If you want to make sure you make the most of your intimate relationship with your other relationships, you must learn to do what? Create boundaries. Proverbs chapter 22 and verse 28. It says, I'm reading the Message translation here. It says, don't steadily move back the boundary lines. Start out long ago by your ancestors. Now, this is talking about, boundaries, being careful not to cheat on anybody, boundaries, but I want to expand it a little further to include every other boundary, especially our boundaries in relationship. You must learn to create boundaries and respect boundaries. If you want to have a good balance between your intimate relationship with your other relationships, you need to do what? Create boundaries. Create boundaries that determine how much you want people to know about you and your relationship, and also create boundaries about how much you want your other relationship to get involved in your intimate relationship. So it's important we do that. You see, relationships are beautiful. And you see, when you decide to get into relationship, one of the reasons why God made relationship is so that we can expand, we can enlarge. We can enlarge. Somewhere in Jeremiah chapter 21 was telling them, get married. Let the sons get married. Let your daughters get married so that you can be enlarged. So getting into a relationship is another form of enlargement. It's one other way to enlarge your coast. But now, in enlarging your coast, you must be able to create good balance. And to do that, you need to create what? Boundaries. Have boundaries on what you expect from them and what you are ready to give out to them. See, having boundaries will help you limit, their involvement in your personal relationship. It's good to have what? Boundaries. Doing relationship without boundaries is like a death trap. I can tell you that first time because I've entered into one or two relationships that I was not deliberate in creating boundaries, and it almost took away my joy and my peace. So creating boundary is important right from the onset of whatever relationship you get into. You must begin by creating what? Boundaries. When you create boundaries, it limits intrusions into your personal life, limits intrusion into your personal relationship, and it also limits the exposure of things. It kind of gives you control, over your personal relationship, balancing it with your other relationships. Now, the question is, what do you do to create boundaries? What do you need to create boundaries? Now, to create very good boundaries, you need principles. You need to have principles. You need to have rules. You need to have guidelines. These three things are very, very important if you want to create what? Good boundary in your relationship. Have principles. Be a principle. Have guidelines. Have rules that govern your life. A ruleless person will be unstable. And when you become unstable, you will be double-minded. Once you don't have rules, you don't have principles, you don't have guidelines on what you must do and what you must not do, what you can take and what you cannot take, and what you're ready to give out and what you're ready to take in. If you don't have principles, you don't have rules, you don't have guidelines, you become an everything goes person. You become very double-minded. You're kind of never sure of yourself. And once you are that kind of a person, then I can tell you, you will be very unstable, or you have very unstable relationships. So you must have what? Boundaries. The Bible in James chapter 1 verse 8, it said a double-minded man is what? Unstable in all his ways. Now, the one way not to be unstable in your relationships, not to have unstable relationships, is to have what? Boundaries. Create boundaries. Now, beyond creating boundaries, learn to keep your boundaries. I need to say this because it's important. If you create boundaries that you are not ready to keep, it's as good as not having what? Boundaries. So you create boundaries, and you must be ready to respect the rules you've made that you expect other people to respect. You start by respecting your rules, you respect your principles, and you also respect what? Your guidelines. If for any reason you break any of your principles, or you have disregard for your rules that you have made and put in place that you want other people to respect, if you are the one breaking it, then be sure you have personally removed your boundaries. Now, by the grace of God, one of the rules my husband and I had when we, was that if you see me talking with somebody, and after talking with that person, I come and I'm not telling you what we said, please don't ask me, because I will not tell you. That's a principle. Don't ask me, oh, what were you saying with that person? Or what did that person say to you? I won't tell you. Now, that's one of my principles. Since it's a principle I've made, I should not be asking somebody else, what did that person say to you? What went on between you and that person? So everybody must have what? Principles. You must have. You want to create boundaries, you start creating boundaries by having principles, by having rules, and by having guidelines that govern your life, so that you don't be a dumping ground for everybody and you be a person that everything goes for. It's important to create boundaries. You want to keep your relationship versus your other relationships healthy, in a healthy way, then you must have what? Boundaries. Now, at this point, I want to ask, what are your principles? What are your rules? What are your guidelines that you would expect anybody you're going into a relationship to respect, that you're not willing to shift for whatever reason? What are they? It's important. Now, I want to say this to you. Whatever your principles, your rules, your guidelines are, don't break them. Breaking them is teaching others to do what? To break them. And now I want to say this, having no rules, not having no principles or guidelines in life makes you a very pathetic person. You become like a dummy for everybody to use anyhow they choose to use. When you don't have principles, you don't have rules, you don't have guidelines, when people come into your environment, they can do whatever they want to do. And it becomes very unhealthy. At the end of the day, the relationship gets wounded, you get pain, and so many other things just go wrong. So you want to make sure that your relationship, that is your personal, intimate relationship, is protected and well balanced with your other relationships. What should you do? Have boundaries, and have the boundaries that you are not willing and prepared to shift. It's important. You learn to respect your boundaries, then every other person will respect your boundaries. Now, having said this, at this point, I want us to address some issues. It's important to address some issues. So I'm going to handle from this point in time like a question and answer, and I trust God will still have time for our interactive session. So the first issue I want to address is, should you have best friends of opposite gender? And should your best friend, should you have a best friend that is the opposite gender? You are a guy. Should your best friend be a girl? You are a girl or a lady. Should your best friend be a guy? Should you? Well, before I answer this, let's look at who is a best friend. Who is a best friend? Now, a best friend is someone you are completely vulnerable with, someone that you have a special place in your heart for. There's a space somewhere there in your heart for anybody you call a best friend, that no other person can be there. That is, when you say a best friend, you can have two best friends. A bestie is just one person, special person that you keep somewhere there in your heart. Someone that knows almost everything about you, and still loves you and covers up for you. A bestie is someone that you can call on at any time. You can just call up the person at any time, hug the person anyhow. A bestie is someone that you can cry on his or her shoulders. A bestie is someone that you can fart in the person's presence and you don't feel ashamed. That's a bestie. A bestie is somebody that can, you want to check out your breath. You can go to the bestie and open your mouth and like breathe out and tell her, how's my breath, how's my breath. And the bestie will not feel embarrassed or what. You see, when you say somebody is a bestie, somebody you are completely vulnerable with, and you are not ashamed, you are not afraid. That person has a special heart, just a compartment somewhere in your soul, in your heart, that no other person can, occupy. That's a bestie. And Proverbs chapter 18, Proverbs chapter 18 says, a man that has friends must show himself friendly, and there's a friend that still gets closer than a brother. For me, that's a bestie. A bestie is so close to you that when you think about that person, you don't remember the person is not a part of your family. The person has become so close to you, so knitted with you, that you see the person as family. Like David and Jonathan, your soul has kind of clipped together. That's a bestie. And I have one that I have kept for almost 40 years. Our friendship has been almost 40 years. Through the years, it's gone through phases. Somehow we just go and still come back together. You fight your bestie, but you quarrel and you fight, but you settle all the same. That's a bestie. You know, a bestie, you talk on phone for hours, and it's like there's always something to talk about. My bestie now, she's not staying, we don't stay in the same city, but we are. And right now, we don't maybe call too often because we all have our life. But any day we call, we can be on the phone for hours. We pray, we cry together, we just talk everything. You know, most things together. Let me not say everything. We talk most things together, and we are not afraid to share our thoughts and our fears. That's what a bestie. Now, if I understand the concept of a best friend, you don't share their space with any other person. That person is just special, and you have many friends, but nobody shares that person's space with you. Now, having said that, I want to ask some question. Would you have a partner that you are in love with and have another person as a best friend? Would you want, would you want your partner to have a best friend of the opposite gender that is not you? Would you want that? Having understood who a bestie is, a best friend is. Well, personally, now to answer that question, should you have the opposite, gender as your best friend? Personally, that's me. I would say no. I would say no to an opposite gender bestie. And my reason is that in most cases, that other gender will not kind of form could come between you and your intimate relationship. It just kind of happens. Once somebody is your best, that means that person is occupying a space in your heart that ought to be for that person you're in love with. Aha. So for me, having a girlfriend, if you're a girl, as a bestie, could make your spouse or your fiance jealous already. How much more if that bestie is the opposite gender? Let's be a little practical here. It got as it be, as we could talk about Nigeria again. So, and then secondly, why I say no to having the opposite gender as a bestie is that subconsciously, because of the attachment you have to that with that person, that's if you're not yet married, if you're single, you start using that person as a standard of the choice of person you want to settle down with. And that might make it very difficult for you to fall in love or to pick another person that you could really build intimate relationship with. And thirdly, I say no. Why? Because I personally feel that whosoever you are choosing to have an intimate relationship with should ultimately become your best friend. And I find it a kind of funny because personally, I wouldn't want whosoever I'm in love with not to be my best friend or make me his best friend right now. So for me, the answer is a no. Having same gender could be, it's already a problem. How much more having the opposite gender being your best friend? Now, how are you going to do that? How are you going to hug the person and give the person a beer hug? Are you getting me? How are you going to, hail the person when you really feel like hailing the person? How are you going to say, Kai, you are the love of my life to you? Because sometimes you could use such phrases for your bestie. Now, you have somebody you are in love with and you are looking at, for the lady, for example, and you're looking at another guy and you say, Guy, I cannot do without you. Your husband is somewhere there. You have see, friendship for me is a choice. You don't just do friendship anyhow. You choose who you want your friend to be. So it's in your power to make choices, have principle. That's where we began from. If you make principle that I'm going to have a best friend, I want to make a best friend, the best friend should be same gender with me. If you make that as a principle, you can find that you would ultimately make same gender, your same gender If you're a girl, you look for a girl to be your best friend. If you're a guy, you look for a guy to be your best friend. It makes it easier on you to interact with your opposite sex relationship or the other intimate relationship. Well, I know a few people who maybe, I know somebody who actually told me that his best friend is a lady, and he got married, but the only way they could run that relationship, the lady remain his best friend, is that his wife, it's now they incorporated that relationship. It's now like a three people, but now two coming together to form one, and then joining with becoming best friend with the other person. And I feel that's the only way it could actually work. That's the only way having the opposite gender as a best friend will work if you want to maintain your intimate relationship. That automatically the three becomes like two in one with one. You can't be having a best friend that is not your spouse. Because would you want your partner to have a best friend that is not you? Well, maybe you can, but I wouldn't, because I will work to be the best friend of my partner. I will work to be the best friend of my spouse. You work to be the best friend of whosoever you ultimately get married to. That's what makes marriage thick. When people in marriage are best friends, they take a lot from each other. And I normally counsel, and I normally say, when you get married, please make husband and wife level of relationship the bottom line. Make the number one level of relationship friendship. Become best friends. When the two of you are best friends, you can take so much from each other. So for me, it's a no-no. Because when you get into the having a relation with your partner should work. You should work to make your partner work with your best friend. And there's no room for two best friends, except you collapse it into two in one and one. Now, what's the next issue I want to look at? Should you be supportive of your partner's relationships? Yes, as long as that relationship is not affecting your intimate relationship negatively, as long as healthy boundaries have been set out from the onset, why not? You should be able to support each other's relationship. I feel that because you're married or you are in an intimate relationship does not mean you should be. So you should be able to be supportive of your partner's relationship. You should be able to be your siblings, you should be able to be supportive of it. You should be able to be supportive of the relationship between your partner and the parents. You should be able to be supportive of your partner's relationship with the colleagues. You should be able to embrace it. Now, if you are a person that wants to get into a relationship and want whosoever you're relating with to cut off from everybody, I feel you are not going to create a healthy relationship. You are painting yourself more like someone who wants to be abusive, because that's one of the the steps abusive people take when they come into a relationship. They want to cut you off from every other person you're relating with. So every healthy relationship should be able to incorporate other relationships. So I'm supportive of other relationships. Just create boundaries that will not infringe on your intimate relationship. And I tell you, the whole group kind of thing is beautiful. It's healthy for intimate relationship to have extended relationship that you can go out to take holidays with, have a group kind of fellowship with. So you should be supportive of your partner's other relationship as long as there are boundaries and it's not infringing on the or affecting negatively your other relationships. Now, the next issue I want to look at is how much is too much talk. How much is too much to talk about yourself with your either girlfriend or boyfriend if you're a guy, or how much is too much for you to talk about yourself with your friends? How much is too much? To say that, I want to read a scripture and I want to write on that scripture. 2 Kings chapter 20 and verse 13, talking about Hezekiah. Hezekiah at a point became very sick, and when he was sick, he prayed and the Lord healed him. After the Lord healed him, he had a friend, a leader of another country who now decided to come and pay him a visit. And when they came, the ambassadors and the people came. The Bible here in verse 13 says, and Hezekiah hearkened unto them and shewed them all the house of his precious things, the silver, the gold, and the spices, and the precious ointment, and all the house of his armor, and all that was found in his treasures. There was nothing in his house, nor in all his dominion, that Hezekiah shewed them not. And after he took this step, the next verse, the prophet came to him, Isaiah came to him and said, you had some visitors. He said, yes. He said, what did you do? He said, I showed them everything. He said, you showed them everything. He said, yes, I showed them everything. And the prophet said, since you showed them everything, the same people who showed everything will come and take up everything you have showed them. So what's my take on your disclosing or how much you should talk with your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your friends? Whatever is precious and dear to your heart, that when it becomes public will cause you pain, please don't share it. And here it says, your silver and gold, please, no matter how close you are with your friends, don't share your wealth. That is how wealthy you are. That is, don't share don't let them know your what's the word now? Don't let them know how much you are worth. Don't let them know the details exactly. They might know you're comfortable. They might know, yes, this guy looks good, but don't let them know the exact amount you have to your name. Don't let nobody know that. It's your personal secret. And he said the spices, and you don't let them know some intricacies about you. It's like I normally say this: if you are in friendship relationship, you are with friends, don't keep some things that. Some of those things that tickle your fancy, some of those things, your weak points, those things that, when somebody does to you can make you, we call it your mumu buttons. Those things that when somebody does to you can make you want to shift your boundaries. And don't let nobody know that there are spices. Those things that spice up your life that could, when they're added to you, could make you, do some crazy stuff or make you shift boundaries. Don't, as much as possible, try not to let people know that it's important. And he said that the ointment, you see, it's good to be open, but please, I beg you, have some things about you that is for you alone. So from the scripture, it's obvious that no matter how much you want to talk with people, don't reveal everything about you. Don't. By the time you are telling everybody your weakness or your strength or everything, you are just opening your mouth to talk anyhow and tell everybody about you, everything about you. You are talking too much. You are going too far. Here, the King Hezekiah was reprimanded for doing that, because anybody you tell everything about you have you at the palm of their hand, and it's only God that is steady and stable. It's only God that is steady and stable that will know everything about us and not use it against us. So in talking about you, please keep some things to yourself. Now, the next issue we want to look at is how much is too much to share with your friend about your relationship. How much is too much to share with your friend about your relationship? Why am I saying this? Because I've seen some people who want to talk about everything they do with their partner, with their husband, with a friend, and I feel that's not too healthy. There are certain things about your relationship that should just be between you and whosoever you have that intimate relationship with. Who should be between you and your partner, between you, your fiancé, between you and your husband. Now, even as I have this to also say, the things you reveal to people about your relationship you should be careful. And I want to say this is important. Yes, it depends. Sometimes it depends on the depth of your relationship with the person. That is how strong and how solid that relationship is with whosoever you call your friend. Sharing intimate details with a friend, I feel it's too much. No matter how friendly you are with a friend, intimate details, how you and your husband make love, or how what your husband looks like, or what your wife looks like. It's a personal thing that you must not share. Your love life, I feel it's personal. Or talking about how you and your spouse play out, it's personal. Those are things secret between you and your spouse. Those beautiful things, those beautiful experiences. I feel personally it should be what? It should be what? Private. Or trying to describe your spouse to your friend, and you're going too far. You're going too far. You're going too far. You don't do that. Or discussing intimate or secrets known by privilege, like things you got to know about your partner or or your spouse by reason of intimacy. And now you take it, you want to discuss with another person, you're going too far. I feel you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't do that. I feel you should have some secrets that is only between you and your spouse, between you and your partner. It's important you have that in mind. I don't put it this way. I normally say there are some secrets about your spouse, about your spouse or your partner that you should go to the grave with. There are some secrets that you should go to the grave with, because they are privileged information that if not for the intimacy level you have, you will never know them. So discussing such things with anybody, no matter call that person bestie, you are going too far. You are going too far. Sometimes some people want to behave like Samson and Delilah. How do I put it? There are certain things that is just for you and that relationship alone. No, it's not meant for any other relationship. Samson and Delilah, Judges chapter 16. He finally kept pressing until he opened his mouth and vomited what he should have gone to his grave with. Now I want you to understand that some secrets, that informations that you get to know by privilege of intimacy with whosoever your spouse, that must not be leaked out. It must not be leaked out. Yes, it must not. It's important. When you begin to talk about those things, what's happening? You are talking too much. Now, sometimes some of us have goofed, we made some mistakes, especially when it comes to maybe our personal one-on-one relationship with our friends. We've gone too far to reveal things we ought not to reveal, talk about things we ought not to talk about. Why? Because why do we talk too much at times? I want to say one or two things. I'll just give you 1, 3, 4 points why we talk too much in our relationship and end up revealing what we ought not to reveal. Number one, love. Yes, love could be funny. Love could be funny. You find that the more you love a person, the more the deeper the depth of love you have with a person, the more vulnerable you become, and the more you kind of let down your guards. Love kind of does such things, to people. It intoxicates sometimes like wine. Love could get you drunk to the point where you become so vulnerable and you begin to say things you ought not to say. Yes, sometimes that's why people talk too much. They love so much. But now I want you to know that love is not stupid. Love is not foolish. Love is sensible, because love is God. When you begin to get into a love relationship where you start becoming careless and not sensible, you are kind of breaking some of the code of love, because love is wisdom. Love is patient. Love is kind. It's gentle. You look at the qualities of love, you find that no matter how much you are in love, you shouldn't lose your senses. You should be able to still put your senses in control. It's hard to do, but that's why we are taking this teaching. When you get to know it, you become conscious on how to make sure you don't talk too much out of love. And sometimes people talk too much because you just get overwhelmed, either overwhelmed by a situation of life, overwhelmed, and you want to talk, or maybe you are so overwhelmed out of excitement, either good or bad. Sometimes you must deliberate and intentional on doing that, no matter how overwhelmed you are. Yes, overwhelming situations come up, things happen, and sometimes you just want to talk. In the midst of that, know that when the pain is over, when that situation changes, you'll still be there. So protect yourself and kind of protect your relationship by not allowing being overwhelmed to make you say what you ought not to say. Now, what again makes people, talk too much? Deception. There are some people, who are smooth talkers. Some, they come putting very caring attitude. They come in and they show so much care, and all in the bits. You have to be careful. I'm going to talk a little bit about on how to choose a good friend from a bad friend. I'm saying this why, because some people out of deception have let down their guards only to find that thinking they have a friend, they've revealed secrets to an enemy who eventually uses whatever secrets they've revealed against them. So mind who you talk to in your vulnerable moments. Mind who you talk to. See, it's important. I took some teachings on deception some time ago. It's important, especially as a child of God, for us to activate our discernment capacity to discern. And the truth be told, the Bible makes it clear in Hebrews chapter 13 that we can actually, exercise our senses to the point where it becomes very discerning. So if you're a child of God, that's one of the things you should learn to do, and that comes by spending time in the Word. The more you spend time in the Word, you're exercising yourself and you're exercising your mind, and then your mind becomes so ignited by the power of the Word that your discernment is hyper. So it's important, because some people have touched too much out of deception, believing a lie or believing somebody to be who the person it's not. So it's important. Now, when again do people talk too much? Moments of loss, of bereavement. When someone is a moment of loss, either of a loved one or of a relationship, or maybe loss of a job. Sometimes you find yourself the loss. When there's a loss, there's a kind of grieving that comes in that just makes you just want to talk. There's a measure of pain, a pain that comes into you to you in life that you want to talk. Talking like helps you to let off steam. Now, no matter how much the loss is, if you don't want to cause much bigger pain than the loss, you must be careful. You must be careful how much you talk to who you want to talk to. It's important you do that. Now, at this point in time, I want to say, ask this. At this point in time, it's important. I can feel in my spirit, man, somebody that is really hurting. You're in so much pain because listening to this message is reminding you of a pain you're going through. I speak healing for you at this point in time. Receive the healing of the Holy Spirit in Jesus' mighty name. Now, I want to look at this other issue. At what point does your sharing become detrimental to your relationship? I'm going to combine these two questions because they have similar answer. I'm going to combine these two questions. They have similar answers. Okay, just a moment, please. At what point does sharing become detrimental to your relationship? At what point does what you share becomes detrimental to your relationship? And I want to combine it with this other question. At what point does it become a sign of disrespect or dishonor to your partner in the name of sharing with either your best friend or somebody you want to share with, except you're going for counseling where you need help for your relationship? Here we are talking about you just sharing with your friends, sharing your feelings. At what point does it become detrimental to your relationship, or does it result to disrespect and dishonor to your relationship? When what you share makes people look down on your friend or make people look down on your partner, you've gone too far. Where you share things that when people see your partner, they see your spouse, they can't bring themselves to respecting that spouse. You've talked too much. Why? Because you're still in that relationship. Even if you are not in that relationship, you had something to do with that person at the time in your life. So at no point under no condition should you share things that will make the person lose self-worth or be ashamed to walk on the street. No, if you've done that, you've gone too far. You've gone too far. So you shouldn't do that. Now, at what point should you share all At what point should you share all? Now we're coming now zeroing down to the marital relationship, right? I want to say, when you get into a covenant relationship, for me here now, it's marriage. The Bible says 2 of you have become one. There ought not to be any secret between husband and wife. That's a covenant relationship. You know, we can see that in the life of Jacob in Genesis chapter 31. He went through so much in the hand of Laban, and somehow that was his father-in-law. But a time came, he needed to go. He had to sit his wives down, and he poured out his heart. He said, "Your father has been mean to me." You can imagine that for some people, you say that to his spouse, and then all hell could break loose. But now that was a covenant relationship. He poured out his heart, and he said everything to his spouse, and they were able to understand, and together they were able to make a plan that was beneficial to the family. Now, I want to say this. Many people don't understand marriage. Marriage is not a contract. It's a covenant. It's a covenant. Before God, when God made marriage, he made marriage in such a way that when you get married, you are no more two. You are now one. What happens to the other person happens to you. It's not two. It's one. The Bible in Genesis, I think chapter 5, it said, and God called them Adam. That means when he looked at Adam and Eve, he wasn't seeing Adam and Eve, he called them Adam. Marriage is a covenant relationship that when people get into, they ought not to have secrets. They ought not to hold back. They ought not to be afraid to be vulnerable. They ought not to be ashamed to be vulnerable. It's unfortunate that marriage has gotten to the point where people are viewing it like a contract, where people are not even seeing their spouses as their best friend. Honestly speaking, if you understand marriage, you shouldn't have any bestie outside your spouse. That's how God organized it. There should be no other person occupying that space, that special place in your heart. It should be your spouse. That's what marriage is. It's unfortunate that people have reduced marriage to like any other relationship. No, marriage is not like any other relationship. It's a special relationship. It's a covenant relationship. It's a relationship that brings you into oneness with whosoever you have chosen to get married. It's a covenant. And the Bible says God hates covenant breakers. So the truth be told, don't take marriage if you are not ready to be vulnerable. Don't. That's why you have to be careful who you choose to make a spouse. It's a choice-making process that you need guidance from God. You need all of your senses alert, because it's something that takes all of you, that demands you give all of you. That's marriage. So you don't enter into it carelessly. You must be deliberate. You must be intentional. You must carry all of your senses. You carry all of your spirit. Because it will take all of you. So under covenant relationship, yes, you can say all. If the two of you are grown, I'm using this word now, grown, to become covenant partners. I'm using that. Why? Because oneness is not automatic. You work it out. On your wedding day, you are declared one. But after you are declared one, you have a responsibility to work out the oneness, because the oneness is not automatic. It's a prophecy. I now present to you Mr. A, Mr. and Mrs. ABC. They are now one. A prophecy has gone out. But the Bible makes us to understand you work out. You work with prophecy. You work with prophecy. So I release grace upon all of the marriage. Every one married person listening to me, receive grace to become covenant partners in Jesus' mighty name. Now, quickly, how do you make sure you don't talk too much? How do you make sure you don't talk too much? The Bible recommends discretion. Be discreet. And I also recommend discretion. And discretion is learning to talk without revealing too much at a time. Learning to talk in a way that makes you are viewing the environment, viewing the personality, viewing the kind of person you're relating with. And the more intimate the relationship goes, that's how you be releasing small by small. It's being discreet. Proverbs chapter 2, verse 11 says, discretion shall preserve thee, understanding shall keep you. Being discreet will preserve your relationships. It will preserve your relationships. It will, the verse 12 even says, it will deliver thee from the way of the evil man, from the man that speaketh forward in discretion. Discretion. Proverbs chapter 5, verse 2 also says that thou mayest regard discretion and that thy lips may keep knowledge. It's important to be discreet. It's something we train ourselves for, to be discreet, minding the kind of information you reveal, revealing information small by small, watching the environment, understanding the person you're dealing with, and based on your understanding of the person, you are gradually releasing information about you, about your relationship. It's important you do that. Discretion, that's the key. That's the key. Break boundaries first, then number 2, be discreet. Be discreet. When you're dealing with your relationship versus other relationships, you need boundaries, you need discretion. If you put this tool to place, I tell you the truth, you'll be able to balance and preserve your relationship. In conclusion, I want to give 1 or 2 tips to help you maintain your relationship versus other relationships. 1 or 2 quickly tips. Number 1, you want to maintain your relationship versus other relationships. Choose who to talk with. Choose who to talk with. Be careful of anyone that shows excessive love, sweet talks. There are some sweet talkers. Anyone that's manipulative, anybody trying to push you beyond your boundaries or make you shift your boundaries or does not respect your boundaries. Be careful of such a person. Choose what you say to such people. Watch out for them. They are usually sneaky, very sweet talkers. They are very good storytellers. They never want to let you out of their sight. They suggest ideas into your head and that you do not ask input just because they want to control your line of thought. Now choose who you talk to. Be careful. This kind of thing. You see people like that, be careful. Don't reveal too much to them. You must not reveal secrets to such people. If not, you might be held to ransom. Number 2, a tip on how to maintain your relationship versus other relationship is learn to sieve good friends from bad friends. How do you know a good friend from a bad friend? Simple. A good friend will respect your boundaries. A bad friend will want to push you beyond your boundaries. Any boyfriend that calls him or herself friend that is pushing you, trying to manipulate you to reveal beyond or want to make you do shift boundaries for them, be very careful. That person will end up being more like an enemy than what a friend. It's a red flag. A red flag. Anybody wanting to see what information you don't want to give out. The person is pressing, you are running, the person is pressing, you better run for your life if you want to maintain your other relationships, your relationship, your intimate, your important, relevant relationship. Be careful. Anybody who does not respect you enough to keep off your phone, wanting to pry into your phone, you wanting to gain access, be careful. You better run for your life. Run. I know what I'm saying. You better run. Now, number 3, avoid nosy people. Avoid them. You bring them around your relationship, they might kill your relationship. Number 4, don't seek peace or claim to love at the expense of your boundaries. Don't seek peace or claim to be showing love at the expense of your boundaries, your rules or your guidelines. If you do that, you will lose your self-worth, but for the help of God. So I'll stop at this point so that we can ask some questions. Now, having said that, in conclusion, I want to say this. For all of us, have a good understanding of people before you begin to talk. And for the husband and wife, have a good understanding of your spouse. Build that covenant relationship where you can freely talk things over. You have wonderful children, you can talk over things with them rather than as a stranger. That's for the parents. You can talk some intimate things with your children, especially if you brought them up well and they have grown, rather than talk to a stranger. And above all, I want to conclude here, above all, make it a habit to talk things over with God. I tell you, make it a habit to talk about those personal things, those things that you consider very private and very secret. Talk it over with God. I can assure you to remain permanently safe and secure. It will be locked up, and then there will be a solution that will not take away your peace, that will not take away your joy. So the best person to actually bring right in the center of your relationship versus other relationship is God. Just bring him in the center and put him in the center of your heart, put him in the center of your relationship, and I can guarantee you that you'll be able to create a good balance. The Bible says a twofold cord is not easily, broken. A twofold cord is not easily what? A threefold cord is not easily broken. The three, there is you, your spouse, and then God in the center of it. So bring God on board. Let's talk everything with him. He listens. He hears. He's a living God. He's not an idol. And this is it. If you talk to him, he talks back. So sit down. Sometimes we run helter-skelter. We're always looking for people to talk to first. That's why we enter into trouble. When God is right there, inside of you, by your side, around you. So sit down, talk those intimate things with God. If you are settled on it, I tell you, we'll give you an answer of this. Why? Because by himself, say, come unto me, all you that are labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you what? Rest. You want to rest for yourself, rest for your intimate relationship, rest for your other relationships. Make God the center point of all of your relationships. God bless you. Amen.